Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive.
Let's do it.
Today we're talking all about automatic transmissions,
Yeah.
and more importantly, all the things you should never ever do in an automatic car.
Exactly.
Like those habits we all have, the ones that could actually be damaging our cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the source for this deep dive is this awesome video that breaks it down into like 15 things we should never ever do.
Oh, wow. 15.
Yeah, and some of them I was like, whoa, I've totally been doing that wrong.
Okay. All right. I'm intrigued. Lay it on me. What's the first one? What's the first thing? Hit me.
Okay, first up is running on empty.
Oh.
I always thought it was just bad for my anxiety, like, oh, am I going to make it to the gas station?
Yeah.
But it turns out it's way worse than that.
Yeah.
It can actually damage your fuel pump.
That's right.
Apparently, the fuel pump needs to be submerged in fuel to stay cool.
Mm-hmm.
So when you run the tank low, it's like, ugh.
It overheats.
Yeah, it overheats and it wears out way faster.
It's kind of like, think about a marathon runner, right?
Yeah.
Trying to cool down in a kiddie pool. Not enough water. Not enough fuel in this case, right?
Exactly.
And that fuel pump's working extra hard. So
Yeah.
You're going to shorten the life of that fuel pump considerably.
And then I was reading, the video also mentioned something about sediment, like in the gas tank.
Yeah.
So when the tank is almost empty, it's like all that stuff that's settled at the bottom
Gets stirred up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it can clog up your fuel filter.
Oh, right.
Which can impact the performance of your car.
Yeah.
Not only that,
Yeah.
it can even damage other parts of the fuel system.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's not just about, the inconvenience of running out of gas. It's about actually causing some potentially serious damage
Okay.
to your car.
All right. Tank above a quarter full from now on.
That's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so what about coasting in neutral?
Oh,
I always thought that was a sneaky way to save fuel.
I know. Right.
Like, oh, I'm getting a little free ride.
We've all done it. Right.
Yeah, but it's
Well, it's not really the case. Modern cars are pretty smart.
Yeah.
And when you take your foot off the gas while you're still in gear,
Yeah.
most cars will actually just cut off the fuel flow anyway.
Oh, really? Interesting.
So you're not actually saving
Yeah.
that much fuel, if any at all.
Okay, so if it's not saving me gas, what's the big deal? Is it hard on the car?
It can be, yeah.
Yeah.
There are a couple of reasons why you don't want to be coasting in neutral.
Okay.
The biggest one is actually safety.
Oh, okay.
So when you're coasting in neutral, you have less control over the car.
Oh, right.
If you need to speed up quickly to avoid an obstacle
Yeah.
or react to someone else's erratic driving,
Yeah.
you don't have that instant power available.
Right. Because
You're not in gear.
Yeah, you're kind of floating there.
Exactly. It's like having one hand tied behind your back
Right.
while you're driving.
Yeah, exactly.
And plus, when you shift back into drive, while you're still rolling, it puts a lot of stress on the transmission,
Okay.
which over time
Yeah.
can cause damage.
Makes sense.
And you're probably going to end up riding your brakes more too, which can cause them to wear out faster.
Oh, right.
So there's really no benefit
Okay.
to coasting in neutral.
Noted. No more coasting in neutral.
It's just stick to those gears.
Okay, so picture this. It's a rainy day, and you come across a giant puddle.
Oh.
Is it really that bad to drive through it?
Well, they say turn around, don't drown.
Yeah.
That applies to your car too.
Oh, okay.
Driving through deep water can really mess things up,
Especially for the transmission.
especially for your transmission, yeah.
What's the worst that could happen?
Well, your transmission has vents, right,
Yeah.
to regulate pressure.
Mm-hmm.
But in most cars, those vents are pretty low to the ground.
Oh, right.
So when you drive through a deep puddle,
Yeah.
water can actually get sucked into the transmission through those vents.
Oh.
And you don't want that to happen.
Water in the transmission. What does that even do?
Well, think of it this way, right? Oil and water,
Yeah.
they don't mix.
Right.
Same thing with water and transmission fluid.
Yeah.
It creates this nasty sludge
Oh.
that can damage the internal parts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this can happen surprisingly quickly.
Really?
I mean, even within a few hours,
Oh, no.
you could be looking at some serious problems.
So even if you drain the fluid, the damage is already done?
Yeah, pretty much. And you might start to notice a slipping transmission, which is often the first sign of trouble.
Duh.
And if you don't address it,
Yeah.
it could lead to complete transmission failure.
Ooh, expensive.
Yeah, definitely not something you want to deal with.
So what about those big trucks and SUVs I see driving through deep water?
Right.
Are they immune to this?
Well, generally, they're a little better equipped to handle it
Okay.
because their vents are higher up.
Okay.
So they're less likely to take on water.
Okay.
But for most cars, yeah, it's forced to just avoid those giant puddles altogether.
All right. Puddles avoided.
Puddles avoided. Good plan.
Okay. Now let's talk about something we do every day.
Yeah.
Sitting at stoplights.
Hmm.
I've heard that it's better to shift to neutral at a red light,
Uh-huh.
especially in hot weather. Is
Yeah,
that true?
absolutely. Especially if
Oh.
you're in stop-and-go traffic
Right.
or waiting at a long light.
Yeah.
Um, when your car is in drive at stoplight,
Yeah.
the torque converter, which connects the engine to the transmission,
Yeah.
it's still working,
Oh.
and that generates EAT.
So even when I'm not moving, my transmission is still working.
Exactly. It's still under a load,
Huh.
and on a hot day,
Yeah.
that can really raise the temperature
Inside the transmission.
inside the transmission
Wow.
and put a lot of unnecessary strain on it.
I never realized that. So shifting to neutral
Yeah,
allows the transmission fluid to circulate more freely.
exactly.
Okay.
And it helps reduce that heat buildup.
So it's like giving my car a little break.
Exactly. A little siesta.
Okay, shifting to neutral at those long lights.
Good call.
Okay. Another question. Do I really need to warm up my car in cold weather?
Ooh, interesting one.
Or is that just an old wife's tale?
It's not a tale at all.
Really?
It's actually really important. Think about how your muscles feel on a cold morning.
Yeah.
Okay. Stiff and achy.
Yeah.
Well, your transmission fluid
Yeah.
feels the same way.
It does.
Yeah, it thickens up in the cold.
Oh.
So it makes it harder for the transmission to shift smoothly.
Okay.
And it puts extra stress on the system.
So how long should I warm up my car in the morning?
Few minutes is usually enough.
Okay.
Especially if your car has been sitting outside overnight.
Right.
Just let the fluid warm up and circulate before you head out.
Got it. A few minutes of warm up for a happy transmission.
Happy transmission indeed.
All right. Speaking of bad habits, I have a confession to make.
Uh-oh, I'm all ears. What have you been up to?
I tend to rub my hand on the gear selector while I'm driving.
Oh.
I know.
Yeah.
It just feels natural.
It does.
Is that really a bad habit?
Well, it might seem harmless,
Yeah.
but even that light pressure
Yeah.
can wear down those internal components over time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like, leaning on a door that's slightly ajar.
Okay.
Eventually, it's going to cause problems.
So another seemingly innocent habit
Yeah,
that could lead to big repair bills.
exactly. Exactly. Small actions, big consequences.
All right. Hands off the gear selector from now on.
Hands off.
Okay. What about those dashboard warning lights?
Oh, yeah.
I'll admit I've been guilty of ignoring them.
We've all been there.
Yeah, especially that check engine light.
Right.
It's like, oh, it's probably fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But are they really that important?
They are.
Really?
They're important. They're like your car's way of waving a red flag
Yeah.
and saying, hey, something's not right here.
Okay.
You need to pay attention.
But they all seem so vague. What am I actually supposed to be looking for?
Well, you want to pay close attention to any warning lights related to your transmission,
Okay.
like the transmission temperature light,
Okay.
or if you're experiencing any rough shifting.
Okay.
Those are early warning signs
Yeah.
that could prevent a major breakdown down the road.
So it's like those lights are like my car's version of a doctor's appointment.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Good analogy.
They're telling you to get things checked out
Right.
before they turn into a serious problem.
Okay. Noted. Now, here's something that might surprise you.
Okay, lay it on me.
What about turning off the car before it's in park?
Huh.
Is that even possible?
Most modern cars
Yeah.
do have safety features
Right.
that prevent you from starting the car
Right.
if it's not in park or neutral,
Yeah.
but they don't always prevent you from turning it off in the normal gear.
Oh, right. Okay, so what's the big deal if I turn the car off before it's in park?
Well, it won't necessarily cause immediate damage to your engine,
Okay.
but it can disrupt the proper function of the torque converter,
Oh.
which, as we talked about,
Yeah.
is responsible for smoothly transferring power from the engine to the transmission.
So it's like interrupting a delicate dance between the engine and the transmission.
Exactly. It's
Okay.
best to just get into the habit of shifting into park
Right.
before you turn off the key.
Okay. Good practice.
Good practice.
Now, I know you like to have a little fun behind the wheel.
Who doesn't?
So let's talk about hard acceleration.
Oh, yeah, the fun stuff.
Little vroom vroom now and then. Is it really that bad for the car?
Well, think of it this way. Your car's like an athlete, right?
Okay.
An occasional sprint is fine,
Right.
but if you're constantly pushing it to the limit,
Yeah.
it's going to wear down a lot faster.
Right. So what's actually happening when I slam on the gas?
Well, hard acceleration puts a lot of stress on various components,
Okay.
like the engine mounts,
Hmm.
the suspension bushings,
Okay.
and of course the transmission.
Oh, right.
So it's like asking your car to lift weights
Yeah.
that are just way too heavy for it.
Okay. I'll try to be a little gentler on the gas pedal from now on.
Yeah, your car will thank you for it.
Now, what about shifting into park before coming into a complete stop?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I'm guilty of this, especially when I'm in a hurry.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it really that bad?
Well, you know that little lever that locks your car in place?
the parking
The
paw?
parking pawl. Yes, that little guy
Yeah.
is not designed to stop a moving vehicle.
Oh, okay.
So when you shift into park while the car is still moving,
yeah.
it can put a lot of stress on that little lever.
Okay.
And over time,
Yeah.
wear it down or even break it completely.
So if I hear that grinding noise,
Uh-huh.
that's the parking pawl struggling.
Yeah, that could be a sign that it's being overworked
Oh, okay.
and could be damaged.
Got it.
So always come to a complete stop before shifting into park.
Okay.
It'll save you a lot of trouble and expense.
No more shortcuts for me.
No shortcuts.
Okay. Now, let's talk about transmission fluid.
Mhm.
I've heard that it's lifetime fluid.
Oh, the myth. The myth.
The myth, yeah.
That's a good one.
That it doesn't need to be changed.
Right.
Is that really true?
It's not.
It's
I
not.
wish it were, but it's
Okay,
not.
so why is it important to change the transmission fluid? I always thought it was just there to, like, lubricate things.
Well, lubrication's a big part of it,
Yeah.
but it does so much more than that.
Yeah.
Transmission fluid helps keep the transmission cool,
Okay.
prevent corrosion,
Right.
and just make sure that all those internal parts are working together in harmony.
So what happens if I don't change the transmission fluid?
Well, over time, it breaks down,
Right.
loses its effectiveness,
Okay.
can get contaminated with debris,
Mm-hmm.
and it won't be able to do its job properly.
Oh, okay.
So this can lead to
Yeah.
all sorts of problems,
Good.
rift shifting,
Right. Right.
overheating,
Okay.
and eventually transmission failure.
So how often should I change it?
Good question. It depends on your car
Okay.
and your driving habits.
Yeah.
But a good rule of thumb is every 50,000 miles or so.
Okay.
You can always check your owner's manual for specific recommendations for your vehicle.
Okay. 50,000 miles it is.
Sounds good.
Now, what about the handbrake?
The handbrake.
Also known as the parking brake, emergency brake.
Right, right.
I know I should tease it when I'm parked on a hill.
Yeah.
But what about on flat ground?
It's always a good idea.
Really?
Yeah.
I always thought the parking pawl was enough to hold the car in place.
Well, the parking pawl does its job,
exactly.
but the handbrake just gives it a little extra help.
Okay.
Especially, if you're parked on an incline,
Yeah.
even a slight one.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of stress off that little parking pawl.
It does.
Yeah, because otherwise it's doing all the heavy lifting.
Right, to keep the car from rolling away.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, so it's like I'm giving my car
Yeah.
like a little extra support.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. A little backup.
Handbrake engage.
Handbrake engage.
All right, last question for now.
Okay, shoot.
What about idling and drive?
Idling.
Sometimes, I'm waiting in the car,
Yeah,
picking someone up, and I just leave the engine running and stay and drive.
right, right.
Is that bad?
Well, an occasional short period of idling
Yeah.
is probably not going to cause any major issues,
Okay.
but prolonged idling,
Yeah.
especially in drive,
Right.
is something you want to avoid.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Well, even though newer cars
Yeah.
have features like electric fans
Hmm.
to help with cooling,
Okay.
extended periods of idling,
Okay.
especially in drive,
Right.
can still cause wear and tear
Oh, on the transmission.
on the transmission and the engine,
Okay.
especially in hot weather.
Okay, so even if I'm not moving, my car's still working hard.
It is. Yeah, certain components of the transmission are still engaged,
Oh, okay.
generating heat and putting strain on the system.
All right. So what's the better option?
Well, if you're going to be waiting for more than a few minutes,
Yeah.
it's best to shift into park and turn off the engine.
Okay.
It just gives your transmission a chance to rest and cool down.
Okay. And it saves pool.
And it saves fuel. Bonus.
All right. Shifting to park and turning off the engine, it is.
Good plan.
This has been a fascinating deep dive so far.
It really has.
I feel like I've learned so much.
Yeah, we're just scratching the surface.
We're just getting started.
Lots more to uncover.
All right, we'll continue our deep dive into the world of automatic transmissions in just a moment, so stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
All right, we're back. Still diving deep into all things automatic transmissions.
We are. There's so much to talk about.
I know, right? It's like you think you know how to drive a car,
Yeah.
but then you realize there's all these things you've been doing wrong this whole time.
Yeah, it's amazing how much we take for granted with our cars, right?
Totally. Out of sight, out of mind, right?
Exactly, until something goes wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully this deep dive will help people avoid some of those costly mistakes.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, so let's get back to it. We were talking about some pretty common driving habits that can actually damage our transmissions.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us are guilty of at least a few of these.
Yeah, I'm sure we all have our moments.
So let's talk about getting stuck in the snow.
Ooh, good one.
I remember one time I got my car completely wedged in a no drift,
Uh-oh.
and I just kept slamming on the gas thinking that would magically get me out.
The old power out technique.
Yeah, spoiler alert, it didn't work.
Yeah, that's usually not the best approach.
So what's the right way to handle that? Patience, I'm guessing.
Patience is key. Absolutely. When you're stuck in the snow, the first thing is to stay calm. Don't panic.
Okay.
Because panicking and just slamming on the gas,
Yeah.
it's going to dig you in deeper, and it's not good for your car.
Okay. Deep breaths. Got it.
Deep breaths, exactly.
But how do I actually get unstuck?
All right, so try rocking the car gently,
Okay.
back and forth between drive and reverse.
Okay.
But don't floor it, okay? Just use a light touch on the gas pedal and kind of let the car's momentum help you out.
Okay.
And if that doesn't work,
Yeah.
sometimes you need to call in reinforcements.
Okay. What kind of reinforcements?
Well, things like kitty litter, sand, even those old floor mats you have lying around.
Oh, yeah.
Those can actually work wonders.
They can.
Yeah, just sprinkle some under the drive wheels to give your tires something to grip.
Okay. I've heard about kitty litter, but I've never actually tried it. Does it really work?
It does. The kitty litter absorbs moisture,
Oh, okay.
and it creates friction, so it gives those tires a little extra grip on that slippery surface.
Okay. I'm adding kitty litter to my winter car kit.
Good call.
Okay. Now, let's say I've successfully freed myself from the snowdrift.
Yay.
But I'm parked on a hill.
Okay.
Do I really need to use the handbrake, even if it's a slight incline?
You have that parking pawl we talked about?
Uh-huh.
That little lever?
Yeah.
Well, when you park on a hill, even a slight one,
Yeah.
it puts a lot of stress on that little guy.
It does.
It's doing all the heavy lifting to
Right.
keep your car from rolling away.
Yeah. So it's like doing a one-armed handstand on a slippery slope.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great analogy.
So the handbrake is there to share the load.
Share the load, give your parking pawl a break. You know, it's a good habit to get into even on flat ground, just to take some pressure off the transmission.
Handbrake engaged.
There you go.
All right, what about those times when I'm waiting in the car for someone?
Mm-hmm.
I usually leave the engine running and stay and drive.
Yeah.
Is that bad?
Well, like we talked about before with idling,
Yeah.
it's not ideal.
Really? Why is that?
Prolonged idling, especially in drive, can generate heat and put strain on the transmission,
Okay.
even though you're not moving.
So even if I'm not moving, my transmission's still working.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
It's kind of like making your transmission run a marathon in place.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not really getting anywhere, but it's still working hard.
So what's the better option?
If you're going to be waiting for more than a few minutes,
Yeah.
just shift to park and turn off the engine.
Okay.
Let everything cool down.
Okay. And it saves fuel too.
And it saves fuel. Always a good thing.
All right. Shifting to park and turning off the engine it is.
Good call.
What about shifting from drive to reverse or vice versa while the car's still moving?
Ooh, yeah, that's a big one.
I know that's a no-no in manual cars, but what about automatics?
Well, newer cars often have safety features that prevent you from doing that.
Okay.
But older cars
Yeah.
might not be so forgiving.
Okay.
Shifting between drive and reverse while the car is still moving,
Mm.
it can cause a lot of damage.
So even a little roll can cause problems.
Yeah, even a slight roll can put stress on those gears and components.
Huh.
It's like trying to change gears on a bicycle while you're still pedaling.
Ouch. Yeah, I can imagine that wouldn't end well.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
So the takeaway here is
Complete stop.
complete stop.
Every time between drive and reverse.
Got it. Okay. Now let's talk about winter driving again. What if I find myself in a situation where I need to back up a steep hill in the snow?
Oh boy. Yeah, that's a tough one because you're combining two things that could be really hard on your transmission, going uphill
Right.
and driving in slippery conditions.
So it's like a double whammy.
A double whammy of stress.
Okay. So what's the best way to tackle this?
First of all, make sure you have good winter tires
Okay.
with plenty of tread.
Yeah.
That's going to give you the best chance of getting traction.
Okay.
Second, use a light touch on the gas pedal.
Mhm.
Avoid any sudden movements. Just let the car's momentum do the work, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Okay.
Sometimes you just need a little push.
Right. So good tires, gentle on the gas, and maybe a helpful push from a friend.
Exactly.
Now, I hear you have a bonus tip for us today.
I do.
That's not directly related to driving, but can still impact our transmissions.
That's right. You know, like we talked about protecting your car from the elements in the winter.
Yeah.
Same goes for the summer.
Oh.
Avoid parking in direct sunlight for extended periods.
Really? I know it gets hot inside the car.
Yeah.
But does it actually affect the transmission?
It can.
It can.
Yeah, the heat can actually bake the transmission fluid.
So it's like my transmission is getting a sunburn.
Exactly.
Okay.
The heat can cause it to break down faster,
Hmm.
lead to sluggish shifting, and other problems.
Okay. So parking in the shade or using a sunshade is a good idea, not just for my comfort, but for the health of my transmission too.
Absolutely. It's a simple thing you can do
Okay.
to protect your car and extend the life of your transmission.
Sunshade it is. This has been such an informative deep dive so far.
Yeah, we're covering a lot of ground.
I feel like I've learned so much.
Good. That's the goal.
about how to take better care of my car.
That's what we like to hear.
Okay, well, we'll wrap things up after a quick break. Stay tuned for more tips and tricks to keep your automatic transmission happy and healthy.
Stay tuned.
All right, we're back and we're ready to wrap up our deep dive into the world of automatic transmissions.
That's right. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have, but I feel like there's always more to learn when it comes to cars. So, what other hidden gems do we have to explore today?
Well, let's talk about something that might seem obvious but is often overlooked, using the right type of transmission fluid.
Oh, right. I know there are different kinds, but I'll admit I've always just trusted my mechanic to use the right one.
That's great if you have a mechanic you trust, but I think it's always helpful to understand the basics.
Yeah, definitely. So, why is using the right type of transmission fluid so important?
Well, think of your transmission as a gourmet chef,
Okay,
and the transmission fluid is their secret ingredient.
I like that.
Different types of fluid have different properties, like viscosity, how thick or thin it is,
Yeah.
and each car is designed to work with this specific type.
So, using the wrong fluid is like giving that chef the wrong ingredients.
Exactly. It can throw off the entire recipe and lead to problems.
Like what kind of problems?
Oh, rough shifting,
Okay.
overheating, even transmission failure in some cases.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's not something you want to mess around with.
So, how do I know which type of fluid is right for my car?
Easy. Check your owner's manual.
Okay.
It'll tell you exactly what type of fluid your car needs.
Awesome. Owner's manual, check. Now, what about overloading our vehicles? I know trucks have weight limits, but does it really matter if I stuff my car full for a road trip?
Oh yeah, it definitely matters.
Really?
Every vehicle has a maximum load capacity,
Yeah.
and pushing that limit puts extra strain on your whole car, including your transmission.
Hmm. So all those times I've packed my car to the brim for vacation.
Yeah, you might have been doing some damage without realizing it.
Wow.
When your car is overloaded, the transmission has to work harder, to get the car moving and keep it going.
Yeah.
And that can lead to overheating and premature wear and tear.
Okay, I'll try to pack a little lighter next time.
Good plan. Now, here's one that might surprise you. Be smooth with your braking.
Braking? I thought we were talking about transmissions.
Well, it's all connected. Hard braking can actually affect your transmission
Really? How so?
because it forces it to downshift abruptly, and that can cause wear and tear over time.
Huh. I never thought about that.
So gentle braking is always better.
Okay, got it.
Anticipate your stops, coast to slow down,
Yeah.
and apply the brakes gradually.
All right, noted. It seems like a lot of this comes down to just being more mindful.
That's a big part of it, treating our cars with a little more TLC.
Yeah. Thinking about how our actions behind the wheel
Exactly.
affect the car in the long run.
Exactly. It's about understanding the connection between our driving habits
Right.
and the health of our vehicles.
Well, this has been an incredibly informative deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing all this valuable information.
Of course. My pleasure.
I feel like I've learned so much about how to take better care of my car, and hopefully our listeners have too.
Yeah, that's what we hope for.
So to all our listeners out there, remember, a little knowledge can go a long way. Be kind to your car, and it'll be kind to you. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.